Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shadana Cheney. I work in the Office of International Programs. I am bringing you a country tour to Dubai on August 3rd, 2020. I am very excited to be here, as I'm sure you all are as well. I have a great presenter today. His name is Alec Malgrave. He is a graduate of Prairie View A&M University with his bachelor's in architecture. He is now currently in graduate school. A little background about the great Alec. He is from Katy, Texas. He is not only showing you a tour of Dubai, but he's also a study abroad alumni. He went to Dubai himself. So he's kind of like an expert, guys. He's kind of like a big deal. I'm just saying. His favorite food is curry goat, and in his pastime, he really loves to bike ride and sketch, and he loves to try international food. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it over to Alec. Now I do ask that everyone save all of their questions until the end of the presentation, just so we can give the presenter some time to present all of his information. And we want to be respectful and respectful of people's time. So Alec, I'm going to go ahead and make you the host.
Okay.
And then I wonder if I make you co-host if you can share your screen. So I made you
I
a
think
co-host. Okay, so you're able to share your screen.
let's see. Yes, it looks so. Screen two.
Okay, great.
There. Did it work?
Yay!
Yay! Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that. uh, oh, I see something that says like iPhone entering room. Is that for you or?
Let's see. Somebody may be trying to get in. You should let them in if they're in the waiting room.
Okay, just click admit or.
Yeah,
Oh,
admit.
all right. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thanks again, Miss Cheney. Like she said, my name is Alec Mulgrave, and I'll be presenting the presentation for Dubai. So we basically went to study abroad in Dubai back in 2018, and so I just put a little star so you can have an idea of where that location is in the world. So as you can see, it's further past Africa, right over in the Arabian Peninsula. So let's go ahead and get started. How do I move to the next slide? Okay. All right. So just some
Alec,
context of.
I don't. I just want to stop you. We're not able to see your screen now. We just see you. We see you,
Oh,
but
you only see me.
we don't see the shared screen.
Oh, okay. Um.
Maybe you need to switch
I
it
see
over.
it as a map.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
it's a
see
map.
Marcus?
Yeah, I can see. It's a map of the Emirates.
Oh, that's something because I can't see it. So
Uh-oh. Oh, do you have me on speaker view? Because if my voice is going, it'll keep the picture on me.
yeah, I have you on speaker view.
I think if you take me off of speaker view on your computer, then it should show the map.
Okay. Okay, now I see it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, so many people may be unfamiliar of where the Emirates are. So just as a little background, I have a map here to show. So we studied here in Dubai, if you can see my little mouse. And so the Dubai is one of the major cities of the United Arab Emirates, and then you have the capital of Abu Dhabi over here. So let's just dig a little bit deeper. So here is the city of Dubai, and it's clearly a linear city. So that's kind of how you see a lot in the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf, is that they'll have linear cities so that they can stay as close to water as possible. So that's one of the interesting backgrounds with this type of city that you don't technically see around here in the US, because for example here in Houston we're a ring city, so that's just something to point out. And as you can see, some of the famous palm islands that they made out of sand, they have hotels, resorts, restaurants, and everything on these islands too. So we'll see a little bit of that later on in the presentation today. So I have it divided into about 5 or 6 different topics. So we'll just go and touch in each of those like for about a minute or two each. So of course, travel, we have to get to Dubai in the first place. So that was definitely an important part to start off with the trip. So as you can see here, like I said, it was spring break of 2018. It was 11 students, one faculty. We flew on Emirates airline, really amazing airline group. And I put some statistics here. So flying from Houston to Dubai is a 15-hour nonstop flight. And then coming back, it's a 16-and-a-half-hour nonstop flight. So you might get a little bit of cabin fever if you stay inside too long, but it was a really wonderful trip. And the reason why it's so long coming back is because of how the earth spins. You have an extra wind that's kind of like pushing against the plane as you're fighting the winds to come back home. So that's why it takes an extra hour and a half. So as you can see, a map of, what I took when we were flying over. So we had breakfast around the time we were passing over Spain. This is the baggage claim up here. So whenever you're claiming your bags, you feel like you're in a royal mansion. It was very interesting. And then when you're on the plane, you have these nice seats with big TVs and touchscreen stuff and everything. So it was a very interactive experience, and it was awesome for PV to be able to go and sponsor this trip for us. So like I said, 11 students, and we all had a wonderful time. So jumping into art and culture. So the Arabian culture is very interesting. And I think some people may have some misconceptions about it. So just to jump into some of the true art pieces, we went to go and visit the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, which is actually the first Louvre to be located outside of the original Louvre in Paris, France. So that was definitely a wonderful experience, and it had just opened. So we were one of the first few students in the entire world to be able to go and see the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. So that's the picture right here. It's an indoor, mostly indoor, like 90% indoor and 10% outdoor. So it was really cool. Covered by a $1 billion roof. It was really neat. And then up here, you'll see one of the sculptures. So of course, with art museums, you want to make sure to bring in, like fine detail in sculptures. I think this was like in the Greek area. And then you have Napoleon over here, which most everyone knows. And then another piece of the art that was outside of the museum was the sand art. So this is actually sand that they make, and they dye into different colors. And then they go and put them into these little jars, and they charge you like $8 to, write your name inside and put Dubai in there and all that kind of stuff. And then there's actually a stencil that he uses to draw on the inside. So I think that was probably the coolest thing that I've ever seen as a trinket to bring back home. So now jumping into a little bit of the culture. So you'll see a few places and locations named souks. So souk is basically kind of like what we'd see as an equivalent to a market. So a souk is, like a market, and you can have them in the city or outside of the city. And so those are very interesting. You have some of the souks that sell gold. And so Dubai is famous for its gold souk, where you can buy golden jewelry and all that kind of good stuff. What you see me wearing here is what's called an abaya. So that's typically the traditional dress that the men will wear. And then the women will wear something almost fairly similar called, I think, a galabaya. So those are two different dresses. And so I was wearing that, and I even have my headpiece right here too. So definitely cool to be able to use and wear. It keeps you cool during the day. And we also have an Arabian dancer. So one of the nights we took a desert tour, and we were able to go and see Arabian dancing and food and all that kind of good stuff. Now, speaking of food, you can't travel without having a large spread of food to go and try from. So we definitely enjoyed this culinary experience here. So some of the basic stuff you'll see, we have our breakfast spread over here, some basil noodles and shrimp over here, some Turkish coffee and tea. When you go to other countries, it's important to know that typically they don't sweeten the tea for you. So one of the things I'm sure many people know is that you just go and get cubes of sugar, and then you toss them into your tea while it's hot, and you mix it. And the breakfast spread over here, you'll notice that there's obviously no bacon or any pork related items, because this is a Muslim country. So we don't, we're not able to see or eat, pork, because they're against eating pork over there. So that was definitely interesting. But I'll say personally, I don't need pork. whenever you have a wonderful spread like this, you really don't need pork or bacon or anything like that. I'm just saying. So I doubt you guys would miss it when you go over there yourselves. Now getting into more of the traditional foods. So this was a very interesting piece. They have their arrays of different types of rice with spices that you can see over here. This was at an Iranian restaurant, so they're kind of bringing cultures from other countries to kind of help contribute to the culinary experience in the Emirates. And so over here, you'll see some, like flat bread, kind of like, I guess, pita bread that you might be familiar with. And then we have fish here. And then, of course, the fish was torn up afterwards, but it was a very, very good meal. So definitely an amazing culinary experience. I would love to, go and experience that again. So yeah. Now moving on to adventure. So of course, when you go to another country, there's other excursions that you would like to do, most likely. So we had a few excursions that the study abroad group at PV was able to go and cover for us, which was totally awesome. So what you saw in this previous one, this is the desert safari tour. So we actually got to take a ride out into one of the deserts, which literally isn't too far from the city. And then, so this is us in the tour. You notice what I'm wearing is that same thing I just showed you a few minutes ago. Those help to basically keep your airways clean and clear from the sand. And so you'll see a lot of people typically wearing that whenever they go out into the desert areas. And of course, for us, we were architecture students, so you'll always see us having pictures looking up because all the skyscrapers are there. They have, I think, a quarter of the tallest buildings in the world over there. So it was very interesting to go and be able to see that. And then over here, you have a messenger falcon, which many people might have seen in the movies like Aladdin and whatnot. So you'll tie a message to the actual falcon, and then the falcon will fly over to its destination and land, and you take out the little notes and read it. So that was very interesting, and we didn't realize that they actually do charge you for that too. So just something to take note of before you go. And then, as you can see in this last picture, the vast desert, it's just, once you leave the city, it's just miles and miles of desert. So that's pretty much what you'd expect going to the Arabian Peninsula. So now transportation, this was a very interesting piece because we had a week long that we were spending there. So we just had, like tickets to take this rail. And like I mentioned before, Dubai is a linear city, so it's kind of like long and stretching. So this monorail system or train system above ground was able to take us from one place to another, and you just go down the city line, and so you can really access anywhere pretty easily using the train. So, and it's very safe, very clean, and it is segregated. So not segregated as in, the common black or white that you might have thought of, as in here, but it's segregated by male and female. So because it's a Muslim country, they have a respect for the women, and so you have a women's part only, and if you step into that part, you can be fined, I think, up to like $500. So make sure you don't do that whenever you go over there. So of course, being an Arab country, it's the street signs and stuff like that are in Arabic. So as you can see, you'll have your Arabic at the top, which is read from right to left, and then you have the English at the bottom, which is left to right. So it was very easy for us to get around and for us to understand, the tours and stuff like that, because you could see the signs and they were all translated into English for the most part. So that was definitely good. Some more of the rail system here. So they're very good with public transportation. I used to like to compare it to calling Dubai New York in the desert. So it's a really interesting place to go, really easy to get around and everything like that. And of course, last but not least is the architecture there. So as I had mentioned before, and as Ms. Cheney had mentioned in my introduction, I am an architecture student. I just graduated from School of Architecture. And so this was, of course, the primary point of the trip, was to go and study the different structures of architecture and to see the different construction materials and methods and manners of actually building construction over there. So we have stuff like this, which is the entrance to the Emirates Palace. So this is actually that palace that I was talking about just a second ago. It's actually a hotel, and the governor or ruler's palace is like literally a mile down the road from here too. So very expensive. You can't actually, as a commoner, we couldn't actually go inside the gate area, but it was nice to see from the outside. So that's the closest we could get. And other pieces of architecture. So, very interesting modern designs and stuff like that. And so this is from downtown, and then we have the Atlantis. So many people might confuse this Atlantis for the one in the Bahamas. The Bahamas one is actually the original one, and this is the first and only Atlantis to exist outside of the Bahamas, which is in Dubai, the palm tree island that we had mentioned from before. And then over here is another souk Madinat, which is just another area for shopping and, you know, leisure and restaurants and, you know, apartments and stuff like that. So over here, as I had mentioned, this is the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, which stands at 2,727 feet in the air. So it's maintained that title as world's tallest building for the past decade, and nobody is able to pass that in the world, not even today. So that was definitely interesting. Over here on the far right, you can see a picture of what our experience was up on the 148th floor. So this is the second highest observation deck in the world. And so it was definitely an amazing experience. And on a clear day, you can see, you know, way down into the rest of the country. So that was very interesting to see. This over here, just another piece of architectural design. So what we're commonly used to as water towers, they have water towers over there as well, but they put a really interesting Arab Islamic design onto some of them. So it kind of helps to emphasize the culture of the area that you're staying in. So that was very interesting to see as well. So, and then over here, we did spend a day at the American University of Sharjah, which is one of the only universities over in the Emirates that actually will teach architecture. So of course, as architecture students, we had to go visit, and we were starting to collaborate on a project to do with them when we returned to Dubai, but you know, things kind of haven't worked out in that sense yet. So at least we were able to see the introduction to that project, and you can see we're wearing these crazy lime green shirts over there too. So you could definitely spot us out very easily in the desert. So that was definitely a cool experience. All these people have pretty much graduated, except I think one. So she's left over for one more year. So that was a really cool experience. So of course, more architecture, more buildings. It's a very historical city and a very modern city. So you'll have half of the city that's old, and then the other half which is very new. And it's a very, very clean vibe for you to be able to see that. So these are the Emirates Towers, some of the older towers over there. These are the Etihad Towers. And the reason I put these in here was because if you have seen the Fast and Furious movies, which many people, you know, like to go and watch, I think it was Furious 7 where they drove one of those cars out of one building and into the other. This was actually the location that it was taking place in. So we thought it was very cool when we requested it. And they actually did do damage to the building. So just a fun fact on the side. And so then over here, this is actually the view of our apartment view. So they upgraded our whole study abroad group to an apartment level instead of giving us individual paired rooms. And so that was an amazing experience. And out here, you can kind of like see a sliver of the Arabian Gulf. And so that's a really cool experience to be able to go and see everything be so high up, and also to be able to see water from, you know, your apartment view at the hotel. So yeah, that was very interesting. And then over here, you have the Dubai frame. So it's one of the only buildings in the world that's structured like this. And so as an architecture geek like myself, some of us went to go and see it. So it basically is supposed to be the epitome of forming the past and present of Dubai in a modern culture. And so you go through a little museum exhibit at the bottom through the past of Dubai, and then you take an elevator up, and then you walk across the present of Dubai and look out old and new Dubai. And then you take an elevator down to another museum exhibit for the future of Dubai. So it's a really cool concept, and it was actually designed by a Mexican architect who I don't want to say stole his idea, but they took his idea and never gave him credit and built his idea as part of the competition. And so that's basically the story behind that. And one thing that I'll add is that when you're over there, one of the cultural things is that many of us had to really remind ourselves that we weren't in America anymore. And that's important to note, because even stuff like that with the, you know, stealing of a man's design, you can't really speak about stuff like that when you're over there, because I'm not saying it's completely censored, but you have to be careful because the government does not like, it's frowned upon to basically speak out against the government over there. So you have to be very careful what you say and what you do. They are very Western in their experience and their culture. So you can kind of like maybe push some limits over there, but we just made sure that we didn't do that. So just another, pointer if you ever do go. And I think this is like the last slide. So a lot of the buildings you'll see the rulers. So the ruler of Dubai, the ruler of Abu Dhabi, and the uniter of all the Emirates and stuff like that. So their faces are plastered up all over the city and all in your hotels and all that kind of stuff. This is another view from the world's tallest building. And then down here, you'll see the world's largest mosque, I think, currently. It's the Sheikh Zayed Mosque. Very nice, very white. And when you go inside, you actually have to take off your shoes and cover yourselves to walk inside. So it's an interesting experience. And then over here is the Bourgeois Arab, which is the tallest hotel to be out in the tallest hotel to be out in the water on its own man-made reclaimed island. So it's a historical building, and it's very expensive. So like one night there can cost you anywhere from 7,000 to 12,000 a night. So we just skied around it because that's all we could afford to do. So yeah, but it's in the shape of a sailboat. So it's a very famous building, and it's a very nice, top to the architectural experience that we had over there. And basically that's the end of my presentation. Here's a picture of all of us jumping out of content in the desert. So our driver out in that desert safari tour that I had mentioned earlier, he was a great tour guide. So he got a perfect picture. I don't know how he got a picture of all of us at the same time jumping, but he was good. And so that's the picture I always like to end off with my presentations, is just showing how happy we were, and it was a really great experience. And I can't thank PV and International Affairs and the Study Abroad Group so much for allowing me and all these other cool students to be able to go on this trip. I mean, I'll just say personally, it's a trip beyond my imagination. I've been fascinated with Dubai for all my life, and now PV has given me the opportunity to be able to go and have that experience, and I will forever be grateful for that. So anytime y'all need me to do a presentation on Dubai, y'all got my phone number, just call me, because I would love to. I can't talk enough about this city. But yeah, so thanks again to PV and the International Affairs for sponsoring the trip for us, and giving us the trip of a lifetime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alec. What a wonderful presentation, truly. And I think I don't just speak for myself. I think I speak for everyone on this call today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up for some questions. I know I do have a few questions myself. I was
Okay.
wondering, I have two questions. Was it really hot in the desert? Was it hot in the desert at all?
That's a really good question. I wish I'd mentioned that from before. Yes and no. So what happens is that, yes, during the day it'll be, like you're 109, typical high, right? And it's hot, but it's not a Houston hot, because here in Houston, you have the heightened humidity from, like the Gulf and all that kind of stuff. And so we'll sweat a lot more here. But in Dubai, it's more of like a desert dry heat. So you don't really feel the heat too much. I mean, you can feel it, but it doesn't really make you sweat as much. And you have to be careful of that, because you have to make sure that you're drinking all your water and stuff like that. But when you do go out on the beach, I felt like there was like a giant, heat bubble around me, but I just wasn't sweating. And I was like, this is kind of strange. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at night it does get cold. So.
And then just one more question, and then I'll open it up for others. Would you move to Dubai if you had the opportunity to?
Yes and no. So I would love to go and live in Dubai. However, for certain religious purposes, many people might know I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and our religion currently isn't practiced over there. So I wouldn't be able to practice my religion out in Dubai freely at the moment. And so that's the only reason I wouldn't be able to go and live over there. But if anything changes in the future, then hey, you'll be seeing me catching that first flight over there. So.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. So do we have any other questions? You're welcome to unmute your microphone, or you can put it in the chat box.
Oh, yeah. Let me open the chat.
Hey, Alec, did y'all do doom bashing while y'all were over there in the desert, or was it just like a regular stroll in the car through the desert?
Oh yeah. So I'm glad you reminded me. um, so we did use dune buggies, or the, what you call it, I guess 4x4s, some people call it. And so we were able to go and ride on those for quite a bit while we were over there. And that was a really fun experience because it was all kind of part of that Arabian desert safari tour. So they would go and pick you up at the hotel in that big van that you saw, drive you out to the desert, stop for a little bit, let us ride in those 4x4s all around and do all this kind of stuff. And then once we were ready, we got back in the trucks and we started to do those, rides through the sand dunes in the actual vehicle with the professional driver. So we did all that, and then we had the dinner with that Arabian dancing stuff and everything. So yeah, that was kind of like part of the whole complete experience.
Nice.
Yeah. Highly recommended.
Awesome. We have time for maybe one or two more questions before we wrap up. So you can unmute your microphone or you can put it in the chat box. But go for it. Don't be shy.
How do you think this trip broaden your horizons?
Can you repeat
One more
that?
time?
How do you feel like this trip helped to broaden your horizons?
Oh, that's a really good question. And so for us, well, for me personally, it definitely opened my eyes to a better understanding as to living in a different culture and staying in a different culture. So here in America, this is of course, the land of the free. And so we have a lot of freedoms and rights over here. And you have to remind yourself that when you go to these countries, especially to an Arabian country like the Emirates, or Muslim country like the Emirates, that you basically leave some of those freedoms behind whenever you step on the plane. So once you get there, you're just like, oh wow, this is a really interesting place. But you have to make sure that you watch out for yourself. I'm not saying it's a dangerous place, because in all honesty, I actually felt safer in Dubai than I did over here, because they have a strict no crime policy that's straight up just punishable by death. So you don't want to be caught on the bad side of things, but you just have to make sure that you keep your eyes open to things going on and just kind of be cognizant about your surroundings, because they don't have the due process that we have over here, where you could just be like, okay, well, you could get arrested and you could, be bailed out, or, have a hearing or court or all that kind of stuff. There, it's not like that over there. So that was one of the things where it's just like, sure, you can get away with a lot of stuff here in America, and you can really get away with a lot. But when you go over there, it's way more conservative, and you just have to make sure that you kind of stay aware of all of that when you go over there. So you don't want to be stuck in an Arabian prison.
That was really good insight, Alex. Really good insight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? We have time for just one more question before we close up. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we want to thank our wonderful presenter, Alec. This has been truly amazing tour, and we appreciate
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so how much it costs to ride a camel in the desert?
Oh, so that's a good question. On that same desert safari tour that this picture was taken, they offer a camel, like a free camel ride, where you can like get onto the camel and let the camel stand up and you take pictures and all that stuff. That's included in this whole package. However, I think it would cost anywhere from like 10 to 20 US dollars to be able to go and do that on an outside excursion. The only reason I did not strictly ride a camel was because one of the ladies in this group, I think this lady over here, this student, I shouldn't say lady, she rode the camel, and it was this girl behind the guy, but she had ridden the camel, and she came back and she told me, she felt sorry for kind of riding the animal, because so many people are getting onto the camel all, like during the whole span of the day, and the camel really didn't want to get up, and it was just a kind of depressing to hear that. So I just figured, not saying it's animal abuse, but I just didn't want to, put the animal through so much strain. So that's one of the things that they, tend to warn you about whenever you go and, ride these animals, is that it can put an extra strain on them that, you know, may not be looked at in a bright light for animal enthusiasts. So yeah, but it was free for us to do if we decided to do it, but normally it would be, I think, about $10 to $20 to do, to answer your question.
That's not bad.
Okay, thank you. That sounds
You're
handy.
welcome.
You don't see camel in United States. That's why it's a good experience.
Yeah, right. You don't see too many camels here, rarely.
Thank you. That was a really good question. And once again, we want to thank Alec for a great presentation. If you're on this call and you are interested in presenting a country tour, please reach out to me. My email is smchaney, that's smchaney at pvamu.edu. And I also put it in the chat box really quickly. And just feel free to reach out to me, and you can host your own country tour and help others go abroad virtually.